I just want to remind everyone that we are recording this so that anybody who isn't able to be here is able to join us or is able to come back and take a look at the content and hear the review, but also really hear from you and your comments and questions. So I am going to stop sharing for just a moment so that we can see all of you. And first, just want to say, welcome back. It's good to see so many of you here. I'm sure it's been an adjustment. Lots happening in the run up to the return to school, whether you're doing it from a distance learning or in a classroom. So welcome back. I want to introduce two other members of just a reminder, my name is Charlene Voice and I'm the facilitator for your course. And I want to introduce two other colleagues from the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence who are also supporting this training. First is Catherine Lee. Catherine, you want to give us a wave? And Catherine is, in addition to joining us in these live sessions, many of you will have seen her comments as part of the discussion. We're both available for questions or respond to us in those discussions. And the other colleague is Nikki Elbertson. Nikki is the Director of Content and Communications at the center and will be joining. She's going to be monitoring the chat. So she'll bring to my attention any questions or comments if I miss them, but please feel free to respond or to ask questions in the chat. And when I ask for participation, it's great if you feel comfortable turning on your camera and speaking up. But if you're not in a situation that allows that, or if you're more comfortable, respond in the chat. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And Nikki, it looks like there are 5 people in the waiting room. Do you see that? No?
No, but I will look for it.
All right.
Oh,
I just
there
admitted
it is.
them all. All right, so I'm going to return to my screen sharing. Okay, so this is week 3 of the Ruler Institute, and many of you have had an opportunity to do some of week 3 over the break. If you didn't do it then, and are doing it now, or if this, if your return has been busy, you can move ahead to week 3 as we move forward. So don't feel pressured if you aren't if you haven't yet made it through the week 3 content. So I want to do a quick review of the charter. We talked a little bit about that in our last session, and many teams have created charters. There were a lot of words that were consistent across the charters, and this little word cloud here shows that feeling valued, safe, and respected were the most common words on the charters that you created. So just sort of as a quick review, the charter, what is it? The charter is a contract or a promise that a group of people who are in community together make to each other. And it identifies the feelings that the members of that community want to feel when they're together. And it also identifies behaviors that can that can support those feelings. So the charter is really designed to support positive climate, to really create that sense of community, to make connections in your school or faculty group. The charter is built on 2 questions. The first is, as I mentioned, how do we want to feel when we're together?
Hi, Connie, so sorry. Took a long time to, apologies.
Okay, and the second question is, what can we do so that we and others in our group experience those feelings? So, you know, what are the behaviors? What are the specifics? And when we answer these questions, I'll talk a little bit about the process. We usually suggest that in your when you're building a charter, that you allow time before you start your discussion for each person to reflect on what they would like to experience in when you're together. So this would be, you know, they can go through and name 3 to 5 words. And then after they've had an opportunity to do that, you could start the discussion sometimes in small groups if you have a very large group. For your team, your implementation team during this training, it's a little easier because there are fewer of you. But in a big faculty meeting, you may need to do it kind of in stages. So after the individual reflection, then in small groups, and you gradually bring them together. The discussion around the feelings that people want to feel often takes the shape of trying to narrow down. There are a lot of words that are very close to each other, like feeling respected or valued, appreciated. People might use different words, and sometimes the discussion about which of those words you know, you want to choose can really tease out and allow you to identify the subtleties that go into what people want to feel. And so then you sort of, you know, bring those words together and gradually combine until you have your roughly 5 words that will live on your charter. The second question, what will we do to make sure that or to help ourselves and others experience those feelings? Those are the behaviors that will support each of those feelings. So for each feeling word that you identify, we recommend that you come up with 2 or 3 behaviors that will support that feeling in your group. Now, it's important to make these behaviors very specific. So like be nice or be open, those to new ideas, those are a great place to start, but you might want to drill it down to more specific behaviors. So if I were walking through if I walked into your faculty meeting, for example, or looked at your charter, if I had a clipboard with a checklist, would I be able to feel secure in my judgment that that behavior was happening? So if we're talking about be open to new ideas, that might, that we could make it much more concrete by saying, you know, we'll acknowledge new ideas or share ideas. We will provide opportunities for multiple people to share their perspective. So get really specific about those, and that will allow you to reflect on whether or not you're really upholding the charter. If it's be nice, we might have different feelings about that, different views on it. But if you can check off the actual behavior, it's easier to make sure that you're doing it. And the other thing that I want to say about creating a charter is that the most important thing about the process is the conversation. So, whether or not you choose appreciated or valued, it really, that isn't what the value in the process is. It's really about having those conversations with your colleagues and fine tuning what the language means so that you have an understanding of what they need from the community and what you need from the community. So I'd like to just do a quick breakout session or discussion, and I'd like you to share what your experience has been in creating your team charter for this training, and to be a little more specific, if you could share your observations about the process of identifying words or the challenges that you experience, and then also share your observations and the challenges you experience in operationalizing the behaviors, really pinning them down so that they would be observable. You could think of them as evidence that you are engaged in the behaviors that will support the feelings. Does anybody have any questions before we break out?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms. The prompt is in the chat.
Okay. As people rejoin, I'd like to hear what observations, what the challenges were that you experienced for either identifying your words or with the, operationalizing the behaviors. So if you would like, please unmute and share. Maybe somebody from each of the breakout rooms could share, or if you'd prefer, you can enter your thoughts in the chat.
I'm happy to share for our group. I have to say that one of the things that's come up is that we are all finding it extraordinarily challenging to actually do the work because we are so swamped with addressing issues around COVID. So I'm planning to reach out. I know that it's not Ruler's fault that COVID's happening right now, but I'm feeling terrible. I feel like we have a wasted opportunity happening right now. And this hour is so precious. I just want to talk about the important stuff as intensely as possible.
Okay. And when you say the important stuff, like get all of the Ruler's content reviewed, is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure. I mean, either we're doing it on the online one or we're doing it here, but I prefer not to review in complete detail because either you're going to hold a session for people who are unable to do it asynchronously, which goes over all the material, or this discussion is going to be more about, the next steps or real challenges and issues.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. So I really hope, thank you for bringing that up. And if other people have questions, our hope is that during these sessions, we are able to answer questions. We're reviewing, again, like you said, for some people who are catching up and to make sure we're all on the same page. But please, as things come up, if there are questions that come up that you really want us to address, please raise those either before in an email or at the time. For people who are really having a hard time fitting everything in, the training will stay open for 6 weeks after the actual end of the training, after our last week. So you'll have a chance to catch up and do the activities and review things at that time. And also, if you find that these sessions are, if you prefer to look at them after, rather than attend live, feel free to do that as well. So anybody have any observations or anything they would like to share about the process that might be in line with the goal of these sessions that might be helpful to others who are in the room here with us? you can enter in the chat or take yourself off mute and share.
Hi. I was sharing with my group that our team did our charter together, and then we actually asked for input for the words from our 5th grade students, our student council, and we found that to be really beneficial. The kids really enjoyed it, and I feel like they brought a word that they suggested, and it was empowerment. And we really felt like that was a great word. Like, we didn't think of that, and they did. And we were like, wow, they want to feel that. They feel that way with each other. We do a lot of like turn-in talks and Socratic seminars. So they said that they felt like this would be a good word for it. So we were fortunate that we had our students help us with that as well.
Great. Thanks. So just thanks for that and seeing how it, sharing how it works with kids. I think the main thing was what I already covered, is that the important thing is about the process and the conversation that happens. Just in wrapping up the charter maintenance, a charter isn't something that you create and then hang on the wall and never visit again. There are a lot of ways that you can kind of keep it alive. You can review it in meetings, set charter intentions, share quotes in a newsletter or staff communications that focus on words and behaviors related to the charter. And as you bring the charter back to your school, it's important to think about when the best time is to do that. So that will be part of your big picture planning. When will you do staff training? When will you bring the charter into your conversations? So just a few words about the charter. So the charters will look very different depending on the age and sort of grouping in your school. So these are examples of early childhood classrooms. And so you can see they're colorful. They have the one on the left has kids' names around it and so on. On the right, the kids have written their names. It's important for everybody to sign the charter. So those are examples of early childhood classroom charters. With each grade level, they get a little more complex. The language gets more specific, more sophisticated. And when you look at these charters, it's not, the point is, again, for students that they've had the chance to have these conversations. So don't worry about if they have the word defined exactly right. Ask questions about their behaviors. How will I know? What will I see? To try to get them concrete. But it's really their product. So let that evolve. Again, middle and high school charters get more, more elaborate. This high school charter allows for some flexibility. And these are examples of faculty and staff charters. You will have noticed in the training platform that there was a workspace for you to do this. When you get to the Ruler implementation platform, there'll be templates that you can sort of use to get some of these images. And then lastly, on the charter, this is an example of our at the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence charter. And we sort of envisioned a garden where each of us will grow. We have our charter words. We have on the right-hand side, you can see the behaviors. And then to sign it, we each decorated a rock and placed a rock into this garden bed. And then as new staff members came on board, they could add their rock. They could get introduced to the charter and sort of sign it, by adding their rock. Any remaining questions about the charter? Okay, if any.
Hello?
Yes.
I just had a comment. I just wanted to say that the charter is such an important piece to this work because it grounds us. And I wanted to say thank you for sharing those images, because I was just talking with my colleague and my team member, like, oh, this is incredible, like how people have been so creative in using the charter and allowing it to be not just a piece of paper, but part of the landscape of the building. So it was just an important part of this work. And I think it really anchors everything.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. Any other questions or comments before we move to the mood meter? Okay. So just to review very quickly, I want to just go over how the mood meter works. And just to start, that to say that the mood meter is really a helpful tool in raising our own self-awareness. When we use it regularly, when it becomes sort of a habit that we can use to check in on ourselves at certain times in the day, when you are walking into your school building, before you walk back into your home. It's a tool that can help you really consider what your emotions are and how they're impacting you and others in the moment. So the mood meter helps us differentiate emotions based on how pleasant or unpleasant they are. So on the horizontal axis, that goes from -5 to +5 and indicates our sort of subjective experience, how pleasant and unpleasant the emotions that we're feeling are. And then the vertical axis is more about what kind of energy we feel in our bodies. Do we feel like we're kind of buzzing and up near the top, or are we sort of dragging and down near the bottom? So those are the pieces, and you'll see that these axes create 4 different quadrants. And in the upper left quadrant, the red quadrant, these are sort of unpleasant and high energy emotions. So by unpleasant, I mean that we don't really like to feel them. They're not comfortable. We tend to want to sort of move away from them because they're not comfortable, unpleasant. Sort of lower your the energy level so that you're reduce that sort of buzzing feeling, and that's the blue quadrant. And the blue quadrant is represents unpleasant feelings, things that we don't typically like to feel, and low energy. So we don't have that activation that is part of the red quadrant, but unpleasant, low energy. Moving to the right on the at sort of the same level, of low level of energy, but also pleasant, that's the green quadrant. And then if we go up, raise the energy level, but still stay in that positive or that pleasant experience, that is where yellow feelings fall. And a lot of times, depending on the age and how the mood meter is being used, sometimes we refer to just sort of the feelings. I feel in the red, or I feel in the yellow. And then other times, again, depending on how we're using it, we can pinpoint it more. I am a +2 on the pleasantness and a +3 on energy. So we can get really specific. And what that helps us do is come up with different words that we are feeling. So in the chat, I'd like you just to pick a quadrant. No, let's start with the red. So in the chat, if you can just start naming as many red words as you can, just type them in there. So angry, annoyed, irritated, pissed, angry, pissed, overwhelmed, ripped off, stress. Sorry, you're misspelling, that's fine. Impatient, overwhelmed, livid, peeved. So lots of, you can feel the intensity of those words, and that's that higher level sort of activated experience. Okay, so now for blue, just type into the chat as many blue words: sad, annoyed, timid, hopeless, down, tired, depressed, alone, depressed, anxious, miserable. These are I'm seeing words that I don't often see, so that's great. Now let's move to the green quadrant. Type in as many green words as you can: chill, relaxed, satisfied, zen, calm, relaxed, focused, chill, mellow, hopeful, pleased, at peace. Okay, and then if we raise the energy level to the yellow, how many, type in whatever words: excited, happy, cheerful, elated, hyper, hopeful, hyped, joyful, woo, excited, motivated. What you'll see, let me get to the, is that there are the words in the sort of red are words, you know, we see furious, tense, irritated. You shared a lot more. And those words are things that are in this sort of angry quadrant, that family, but also words related to anxiety, things like tense. When we look at the blue, those are sort of the sad quadrant, down, sad. But it also is a place where feelings like discouraged or bored or, you know, sort of those lower energy, unpleasant words. And then the green is kind of the chill quadrant. So that that relates to words and feelings that are calm, but it also relates to words like grateful or content is there. So each, and then in the yellow, you can see the words there: elated, happy, curious. So those are like the happy quadrant, but it's also where emotions like feeling inspired, feeling optimistic, feeling curious. The benefit of being able to fill out these words, you know, add all these words, is it really increases your vocabulary. And as we've talked about before, name it to tame it, how we label our emotions influences how we respond to them. So if we say that we're irritated rather than angry, or you know, that sort of shapes, irritation is sort of this, you know, sort of grating at you feeling that you're impatient or want it to stop. Angry is a word that represents, you know, an injustice, a response to an injustice. So depending on which word you assign, your actions in response can really be different and be shaped by that word. So I want to just share in the comments the discussions on the learning portal that I noticed when you were reflecting on what you were feeling, that there was a real shift. Like right before the holiday break, there was a lot of excitement. There was a lot of you know, anticipation, looking forward to the break. And then when people started participating, when they returned from the break, there was a lot more anxiety that was expressed in there. And so it was interesting to see that there were instances where someone might say they felt content and anxious. So either take yourself off mute or put it in the chat. Like, how can those two things be true at the same time? That someone would feel content and anxious?
I think it could be just when you're so used to being anxious, then that's like your default. And then, you know, like within yourself, like this is how I normally am, versus like maybe when there are more exaggerated circumstances. I don't think I put that, but that's just what it makes me think of.
Mhm. Thank you. Other thoughts?
There's some thoughts in the chat. Someone said, I second that. And someone said, content in the moment and anxious for what's to come.
Right.
And
And that was, I think there were a number of comments that kind of reflected that feeling of having enjoyed the break, but with everything that's going on with COVID and, you know, the news and just the normal return after a holiday break, people were sort of feeling that tension. They wanted to hang on to those feelings of contentment and fulfillment, but also, you know, recognizing those feelings. Another thing that was interesting in the discussion was that when you were talking about these feelings, particularly in the red and blue, a lot of you shared strategies for how you move out of those feelings. And, you know, nobody likes to sort of hang out there. But anybody have any thoughts about the benefits of not sort of moving away from those emotions immediately?
Well, I mean, like as you said before, anger is a response to injustice. So when you hear about certain things going on, if you were to never get angry about it, then those injustices would continue. So if you're able to use your anger and channel it toward building some kind of solution, then that emotion helped you get there.
Yeah, yeah. So paying attention to those emotions, if we sort of run away without really being curious about, oh, why am I feeling angry? What is that injustice? What can I do about it? We can kind of miss opportunities to take action when that action would be beneficial to ourselves or to others. We also talked in the discussions about where you live on the mood meter. And a lot of you said the green and the yellow quadrants. And so I was just curious about, so we're a group of educators and most people live in the green or the yellow. Any thoughts about why that is, or why we say that we live in the green and the yellow?
Maybe people feel that way because that's where we feel we have to be. So if we're saying like we have to feel happy, we have to feel content. But I think it's more shifting to it's okay to feel sad, it's okay to feel down. It's okay, because I find myself, to be perfectly honest, I find myself in the red and the blue sometimes, especially these last 2 weeks. And just there are glimpses of me heading into the yellow and green quadrants. I think instead of shifting to that's where we need to be, we can say this is where we can be, and it's okay to kind of be exercising our emotions around here.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think, like you said, there's a lot of pressure. We feel like we're supposed to be in the green and the yellow, that's where we should be, but we're not always there. I tend to live in the blue. And, on the one hand, that can mean that, I can sound pessimistic sometimes or critical, but it also means that I am very analytical. I pay attention to things. Things, spin around in my head, and I get creative ideas when I do that, but it can sort of move into rumination if I don't pay attention, if I am not aware of where I am. And so similarly, each quadrant of the mood meter where you live, there are lots of benefits. If we live always in the yellow, it's great. We bring energy. That can sometimes be a little overwhelming if somebody's so sunny that there's not room for some of those other emotions. So it keeps things positive, but we have to be aware again of what we're feeling and what the impact is. There's more on the Learning Portal about that, but I want to just share a video with you related to where you live on the mood meter. And this is a young boy talking about where his mom lives on the mood meter. Whoops.
Hi, my name is Jacob, and I was asked to talk about the mood meter. So I'm going to tell you about how my mom is very stressed. So usually in the mornings, I'm just sleeping in, but I can hear my mom down here just walking around, taking her big breaths in and out. And I don't like it. I don't like it when my parents are stressed. So usually you can see this mood meter right here. My mom would probably be in between probably these three colors right here. Definitely not green because she's not calm, because she's got to be in a lot of meetings because of this whole virus. And I will say that definitely when my mom is in those colors, that I am in those colors too. That's it.
So thoughts? Anybody share thoughts? You can take yourself off mute or add to the chat.
For us to hear from a child's voice that sometimes we don't realize, number one, as parents or as educators, that our emotions are projecting on our children and they don't want to feel that way. So it's kind of eye-opening for me right now, because I am living something like this at this moment. And thank you for sharing that.
Great. And there's a couple of comments in the chat, and I'm sorry I missed some of the earlier ones, but somebody noted that when mom is in those colors, he's in those colors too. So, the impact of our emotions on others. And if we're constantly living in those colors, it means that, the people around us are often constantly living in those. And the opposite is also true, that when we get pumped and excited, we call that emotion contagion. And, our emotions sort of impact others around us and really sort of get passed on. You now understand the mood meter, you understand the impact of emotions, both on your own actions and behavior, but also on those around you. What do you do with the mood meter? How do you take it beyond just checking in? So you can integrate it into your everyday functions. Faculty staff meetings, faculty and staff meetings. So checking in at the beginning of the meeting and saying, you know, asking people to just quietly check in, what are they feeling? And then do sort of a check-in of, is that feeling helpful to me in this situation? If I need to pay attention, what can I do to make sure that I'm able to maybe move to a different quadrant, or sort of put that feeling aside, sort of compartmentalize it so that you can attend to what you need to. When you're doing professional development sessions, really paying attention to what emotions would best support the learning in that situation. And then you can do things to sort of support or introduce those emotions. Some schools have used mood meters on lanyards, just to remind them. It's also a great thing to show kids if you've got it on your lanyard. And doing, you know, taking a pulse over the course of the year to find out whether faculty and staff are feeling the words that are in the charter, and generally, there we go. You can also integrate the mood meter into sort of the daily experience of your students. It goes again beyond just how are you feeling. You can do check-ins right before a test, or at the end of the day, or at the beginning of the week or end of the week. So really help young people become more aware of their own emotions. And also, if you can sometimes have some teachers like to have students keep track of their emotions at different times of the day or on different days of the week, and it really helps build that self-awareness. Of course, this differs by the age of your students, but you can incorporate it into a number of activities. When you're planning lessons, think about where students, about what would be most helpful in terms of the students' emotions in making those activities meaningful. Morning meetings, daily journaling, and one school that we have worked with actually puts the mood meter on their hall passes, and particularly their late passes, so that if a student is late and the person who checks them in and gives them their hall pass just puts a check, or has the student check where they are, when they hand that pass to the teacher in the class they're joining, that gives that teacher a lot of information about how is this student walking into my classroom? Do I need to do anything to help with that transition? And there is a concept called mood congruent instruction. Most of you probably do this to some extent already, but it can be helpful to really sort of raise it in your consciousness, to think about what assignments you are working on and what emotional state would really support students in that work. So in the red quadrant, things like really working to persuade someone, either in writing or in a debate. In the blue, paying attention to detail, editing. Green can be sort of reflection. So that's a good place to be for journaling. And then when you want energy, brainstorming, creative writing, doing things to help young people get into the quadrant that best supports the learning. And the use of music is a very powerful way to introduce a mood into a classroom. You know, if sometimes you can create a playlist for songs or music that will help students move into each of those quadrants. It can be a fun activity to have students help create those song lists, so that when you put on the yellow music, they sort of shift into that quadrant. when they're coming in from recess, maybe you have green music on. This is a mood meter sort of strategy wall and reflection on the mood meter. This is an early childhood classroom where the children have labeled the language that is in the book into the quadrant. They've matched those. That's an activity that can work at any level. If you're a high school teacher and you're discussing a book, linking it to the mood meter reinforces those concepts. This is an early childhood classroom where they plot themselves and plot characters. Other schools have sort of taken it big. This is an art class. I don't recall if it's middle or high school, but they drew self-portraits in different moods. So we have just a minute or so left. Does anybody have any questions that they would like, or things that they would like us to go into more depth on next week? Okay, well, it is noon, at least where I'm sitting. So I want to wrap up, but please reach out if there is something more that we can do to support you. If you have needs, that's why we're here. And we want to make sure that this is a valuable experience and really prepares you to take Ruler back to your schools. So please do reach out, and we'll do what we can to support you at wherever you are in your thinking and planning. So thank you all very much for being here, and I look forward to continuing to see your comments in the discussions. Take care.